Alexander. In today's video, I'm going to talk about the ideal way of starting a business. It's not something that may exist right this moment, but it's something we are working towards. And another thing is parts of this are already reality. So parts of this are already being used in a real learning environment for students that are learning business. Over the last 5 years, I've personally coached hundreds of entrepreneurs, and we've been testing methods of coaching. We've been testing methods to get people results better and faster. And we figured out that some things work better than other things. We've also figured out that everyone seems to be following these cyclical patterns in terms of hypey business models and hypey things to sell and so on. So for example, many years ago, drop shipping was huge. It was like the number one thing was drop shipping. This is maybe 9 or 10 years ago. Then it went away for a while. Then maybe 4 or 5 years ago, it came back. Then it went away for a while. Now it's back again, right? So there's these cyclical events in the business coaching community, and people are going from one to the next to the next to the next throughout the year and throughout the years, and they're just trying business models. They're trying to make stuff work. And what I've noticed is they get stuck. They just don't learn business properly. They just learn to run like a funnel and maybe a sales process. What they don't learn is how business works. They don't learn principles. They don't learn how to detect and react to patterns or anything like that. They don't learn the true essentials of business. So they're never able to construct a business model for themselves that works, which means they're never able to compete with everyone who can. Because if you copy stuff constantly, you're never learning how to actually build stuff, because copying is not the same as building. We've noticed that to truly teach someone business, you need to teach them principles along with the business model. And there's a very specific process that we follow currently. And there's like an idealized version of it that we're going towards. But the key principle in all this is, instead of following the cyclical hype and the cyclical interest in business models and just repeating the cycle of failing and starting over again, here's the solution. Instead of that, you need to learn what's called independent thinking, okay? As you're able to learn that skill, which everyone who's somewhat intelligent is able to do, as you're able to learn that skill, you're able to construct your own reality. You're able to construct what works based on your own experience and your own brain. And anyone can do this. If you've been in business for a year, then I highly encourage you to do this. Here's the 5-step process that we've discovered that works to build business models. Here's the 5-step process that we discovered that is the ideal way of learning business. So step 1, act on an existing working plan. Because in the beginning, and also later on, right? So in the beginning, you don't know how business works. So you can't construct an existing working plan. So what you do is you get into a mastermind or other format like franchise, for example, where you can have a working plan, right? Why do I say this happens later as well? Later on, when you're doing the same process as I'm about to explain, you're still working on the existing plan from before. That may be a different plan, but this is a cyclical process, as I'll tell you, okay? So act on an existing working plan for your business. That's step 1, okay? Step 2 is notice and perceive patterns. So when you notice that clients behave in a certain way, that employees and freelancers behave in a certain way, and the market behaves in a certain way. Like I notice certain patterns in the market just naturally by being part of it and participating in many ways. So you can do the same thing, and you can build up this whole library in your head of these historical events in your industry, and you become a world-class expert in whatever field you want, whatever industry you want, which is very, very valuable. So as you're noticing and perceiving patterns on a big scale, you're also noticing and perceiving patterns on a small scale. In terms of how your clients behave and what happens when they behave a certain way, or how your employees behave and what happens when they behave in a certain way, or what happens when certain market situations change. What are the patterns and how can you detect them before they happen? Because you can't put everything down on a piece of paper. It's not always possible. So some patterns are going to stay in your head. Others you can indeed write down, right? So some things you can track with numbers. Some things are a little bit harder. They would take like a lot of effort to write down objectively, and you track them in your head a little bit. Then the third step is to enhance your mental map of business based on observation. So you take all the patterns, all the observations, all the data that you're looking at constantly as you're running a business, all the financial data, all the sales data, funnel data, everything. You're taking a look on a deep level of what's actually happening and as objectively as possible. And then you are obviously constantly creating a map of how everything works. So as you're growing a business, you're also creating a map of how things work. And what happens is you're able to optimize the map and you're enhancing the map. And as you're observing and looking at facts and data, you're able to create a better map that is more accurate, because no map is 100% accurate. It's just a map, but you're able to enhance it of how business actually works. And from this, finally, at that spot, which is step 4, you're able to generate new ideas for the next, not just micro, where you know what action to take next based on existing experience, but also macro of where the industry is heading, what you can do to stay in the industry if you want to, or enter a new industry or whatever, right? So you're able to generate new ideas, okay? So macro and micro, you can do this on a small scale and on a large scale. And what you do then is the final step, and that is iteration. So as you're iterating, you're taking all those little actions where you're generating new ideas and taking action on them, and taking the best working ones, and then you're implementing them in the real world and like creating a new business model basically. And then you act on the existing plan and you go through the 5 steps over and over and over as you're growing either one or multiple businesses. That's basically the process of learning a business as the ideal. And you can get there. I believe you can get there. We're currently doing this more or less. So we're I would say 80% there. We do have the working plan. We do teach people to think for themselves, and we're really pushing it home right now. What I believe in is giving people plans that are incomplete. So they're forced from day one to already start thinking about solutions and start filling in the gaps for themselves. It's as if they enter into a working business model and they're like, hey, but I can already see improvements here. And yeah, I mean, it's pre-designed that way, of course, but they can see improvements. So they feel like they're contributing. They feel like they're building upon a foundation. And then they're able to start contributing to their own business model and thinking for themselves, because from day one, they don't have this feeling of their hand being held and them, just blindly following as if it's a job. And that way they're learning actively how to think for themselves from day one. And they always know that the number one person to rely on is themselves. So even someone new in business, the number one person they rely on should be themselves, not a mentor, not a coach, nothing like that. Those are just second and third perspectives on their creation, their head of the business map that they're creating, right? So that's the way to do things, and that's the way our coaching philosophy works and our mentorship philosophy works. It's not do everything for everyone, because then you're just giving them a fish, but teach them how to fish on a very deep level where you're learning how to think, where you're learning how to change their behavior and figure stuff out for themselves. Because we've noticed that if you treat people like children, they behave like children. If you treat people like adults, they behave like adults. And we're looking to help raise adults really for business. And this is, of course, all for business. It's not some humanitarian aid we're doing here. It's just we're helping people do that so they can build better businesses and do whatever it is they want to do with their lives. As business is run by more objective, smart, and talented people that are solving problems everywhere in the world, you'll notice more people embrace a way of life that's better, not just for themselves, but for everyone around them that they want to do business with, that they hang out with, just society as a whole, I suppose, as well. But it's primarily they're focused on their business. Primarily they're focused on providing massive value to their buyers, their clients, and just improving lives in general, their own family and so on. So basically that's what I wanted to share with you. This is what I've been working on for the last 5 years. And this is the current, let's say, meta game, the current place we're at in terms of the ideal way of learning business. If you're interested in our process or you're interested in participating, we do accept 7 to 12 people per month. That's kind of our limit right now. So you're more than welcome to go to businessmentor.com or message me and apply. Other than that, that's all I have for you today. Thanks for your attention. It's a lot of people watching. Thanks, and see you next time.